Okay, so this is our statewide meeting for December 13th. As you folks know, as was advertised, we're going to do a recap of our 2025. Be a nice walk. As I was putting this slide deck together, it was pretty fun for me to kind of go back through all of the things that we've done this year, all of the activities that we've had as an organization, all of the wins that we've had. And, Beth was kind enough to share a lot of our impact numbers, which are kind of the front of this presentation. And I was just absolutely floored by the progress that we've made as an organization. And that's, due in no small part to a lot of the folks that are on the Zoom today. So thank you so much for being a part of All Aboard Ohio and really pushing forward our mission to have a more connected Ohio, a more connected Midwest, and really offer transit and transportation opportunities to everybody across the state and beyond. So, with no further ado, this is our 2025 AAO Wrapped presentation. Um, I'm sure many of us that are on this call use Spotify, and the Spotify Wrapped has been an entertainment for me for a number of years now. So it was kind of cute again to put this presentation together, very tongue in cheek. So we're going to start by talking about our membership, and we're going to talk a little bit about our impact numbers throughout the state and throughout a number of the different platforms that we use. So first and foremost, our membership, as we know, has transitioned a little bit this year to a paid member versus newsletter member um, program. We, with our newsletter membership, experience an 83% member retention, which outperforms the industry average by a substantial amount. In fact, I'm going to pull up my little cheat sheet here and I'll be able to quantify that. But while I'm doing that, we also have a 50%, 56% newsletter open rate, an 8% click-through rate, and we've got just under 4,000 total members of our email list, which really positions us when we need to activate our membership for whatever that reason might be, to really get out and touch a pretty substantial amount of the population. Just to put those numbers in perspective, the membership retention rate, again, ours is 83%. The nonprofit average is 45%, so we outperform by a pretty substantial amount there. That open rate at 56%. The average across all industries is 21%. So again, we're more than double that amount. And then the click-through rate, we've got 8% versus an industry average of 2.5%. So again, just a substantial difference in the engagement that we see with our newspaper readers versus those across really all industries. And again, 2025 has really been a breakthrough year for us in our membership engagement. So for the folks that are subscribers, for the folks that are on this Zoom, again, thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of it. We got a lot of earned media exposure this year. We had over 100 media hits with All Aboard Ohio, either interviews, quotes, mentions. In some cases, we had TV interviews. In some cases, we had long form radio. I know I've been on All Sides here in Columbus on our WOSU NPR channel twice this year, a total of three times in the past 14 months, talking about the expansion of passenger rail, talking about corridor ID. So again, we have really positioned ourselves at All Aboard Ohio as being the first call for media outlets. When they have questions about passenger rail, it is just a point of incredible pride that we are the folks that they reach out to. Beth, whenever there's a big announcement in the passenger rail field, Beth is usually fielding somewhere on the neighborhood of 20 to 30 email requests per day after that comes out. And even things as simple as, when ORDC has a meeting, we start to get a bunch of media requests. So again, thank you so much for helping foster that and helping make us kind of the premier point of contact for all things passenger rail. allaboardohio.org is kind of our gateway to the world. It is our, as you know, our website, a lot of information there. We've got pretty consistent blog posts across kind of all sectors of the transit and transportation conversation. Some facts about it. We had a total of 134,000 page views in 2025. This represents a 156% increase over 2024. We had 61,400 site sessions. So that's just people engaged with the website, which again is 188% increase versus 2024. We had 64 total blog posts on our website in 2025, and I expect that won't be the final number. We've still got a couple weeks left in 2025, and our media team has been absolutely on fire this year. We had one blog post, the Detroit's New Station blog post, that got picked up in the algorithm, thank goodness, and went semi-viral. We had about 24,000 page views. And if you take a look at that single blog post at 24,000 and compare it to our total page views over the course of the year, you can see what a substantial amount that was. This happened in September, and that one blog post alone was more than several of the other months combined throughout the course of the year. So just a testament to if we're able to get a really good talking piece up and it gets picked up in the algorithm on Google or on one of the other search engines, it can really be transformative and cause a dramatic effect. Again, one of the points of pride that I've got, we had over 48,000 unique visitors that came to allaboardohio.org to learn about our work. What does that mean for us in the terms of passenger rail advocacy? We are number 3 on Google, number 5 on Yahoo, and number 4 on Bing. So we engage on 9 different social media platforms. We've got a total of just over 34,000 followers combined across all those platforms. The 9 that we engage on, I've got them kind of split out here into traditional visual and then short form social media platforms. Facebook, Reddit, and LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, Twitter, now X, Blue Sky, and Threads. Our most active platforms are kind of right across the top there, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. However, we have had just an absolutely monumental increase in total traffic on TikTok, which we'll talk about here in a couple of slides. So just again, being very diverse across all of these platforms and building that base of engagement in social media. So Facebook is our number 1 in terms of total followers. We had a total of just under 1 million views, 922,000 total views for our posts, 28,000, almost 29,000 interactions. We're just under 9,600 followers, which is a 448% increase year over year. So just again, a testament to how influential we have become here in Ohio. Again, we're gonna say thank you a lot on this call. Thank you to everybody for helping share our information, boosting it through your networks, because that is the type of organic growth that causes that to happen. Our audience tends to be just a little bit more men than women. We do see our Facebook audience is primarily millennials, followed by Zennials and Gen X. So really that 35 to 55 category is where we see most of our engagement on Facebook. Instagram was our top engagement platform. We saw almost 3.5 million total views. We had a couple of posts that went just absolutely stratospheric, and those happened during the budget cycle, which definitely helped improve our engagement at the Statehouse. Total of 105, almost 106,000 interactions, reached almost 1 million different individuals. We've got about 6,500 followers, again, almost a 450% increase year over year. Not quite as many in terms of total bulk as Facebook, but again, that increase was the same. Our Instagram audience tends to lean a little bit heavier toward the men, and it does tend to be a little bit younger. So we see that Gen Z and millennial group from 25 to 45 is really our core audience on Instagram. And again, 3.5 million views. I don't know of any organization that wouldn't be proud of that number. That is just incredible. So let's talk about the new kid in town. We launched a TikTok account about halfway through 2025. We already have almost 7,000 followers. So even though we've only been in business on TikTok for about 6 months, we've got more followers on TikTok than on Instagram. We've seen just over 85,000 likes. And it's really been an incredible channel. And just to kind of talk a little bit about what happens behind the scenes, typically what we see is we develop content specifically for TikTok, short form video to kind of catch the attention of our followers and of the algorithm. And then those videos tend to be shared through the other platforms like Instagram and Facebook. So TikTok has kind of become the central point for our video social media engagement, and then those videos are then shared across the rest of the platforms. So that's kind of the ideology that we're operating from. Again, we've seen just an incredible increase in total viewership, and we look for that to continue as we embark on 2026. So this is our monthly hit engagement. This is a chart that Beth made. So thank you so much to Beth for putting in the time to put this through. You can see since April of this year, we've seen almost a 50%, or I'm sorry, over a 50% growth in total engagement. And that is almost exclusively that TikTok presence. So you can see we've gone up a bit in some of our other platforms, but the bulk of that monthly hit growth is driven by TikTok, and then subsequently driven by the videos that we are sharing from TikTok onto Instagram and Facebook as well. You can see those bumps on Instagram and Facebook. Don't have much of a presence on YouTube right now. Really, the biggest thing that we're doing on YouTube is sharing the videos of what you're watching right now. We would certainly encourage you folks, if there's a particular monthly meeting that you really enjoyed, to share that through your network and get folks to come over to our YouTube channel and watch some of that stuff. I know it's a little bit more difficult to engage with just because they are longer form videos, but certainly a lot of good content on there. I was talking with Mitch and Lisa earlier in the week, and I'm just still kind of in awe as to the amount of information that I took out of the November meeting when we had the Toledo Design Collective come on and speak. Just, again, in that YouTube channel, a ton of great information across a broad variety of sectors that we've worked on. So let's talk a little bit about the people that make this work. We've got members in every corner of Ohio delivering our messages. We've got 6 formal chapters: Toledo, Dayton, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and our newest friends down in Athens. Folks in Youngstown, I am glad you're on this call because we're coming for you next. Buckle up. You have been just such an incredible part of our organization. I think it's time to make it formal. We do have 2 collegiate affiliates, University of Cincinnati and The Ohio State University, both have collegiate affiliate chapters. And we're really going to lean on those folks to do a lot of our grassroots advocacy at the local level. We had 47 events in 2025 with a total of 1,128 attendees, with the caveat that both of those numbers are only events that you had to formally register for. We have a number of events throughout the course of the year that are not required to be registered for, things like our monthly chapter meetings. Almost none of them require somebody to register in advance. And then the little fact down at the very bottom there, we've had over 500 people, in fact, almost 550 people attend these meetings, right? That like you're watching right now. And if you do the math on that, that's about 50 on average every month. So thank you so much again to the folks that are on this call for being there. There's a lot of, I'm making air quotes here, usual suspects on this call that we see month in and month out. So thank you again for being a part of our ecosystem here at All Aboard Ohio. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we did, some of those events that we highlighted in 2025. The first one kind of out of the gate that we engaged with was our March 5th Day of Advocacy. I know there's some folks on the call today that were a part of this. We went to Capitol Square, we went to the Statehouse to spread our message, as we recall, but we'll do it just a little bit of a recap here. This happened in the midst of the state budget process. In fact, at this point in the game, the transportation budget was pretty well done. So most of our advocacy was around the operating budget, which happened a little later in the year. We had targeted meetings with a number of lawmakers in both chambers. We talked with folks in leadership in both sides of the aisle in both chambers. We talked with people that were on the transportation and finance committees, new legislators. Those were kind of our big three target groups. And then we focused specifically on information and education, talking about things like how passenger rail would impact districts across the state, not just the big three cities, Dayton and Toledo, but rural communities and places that might not even have direct passenger rail, but the things that passenger rail expansion can do to impact those areas. We met with a total of 55 different legislators. We had 8 targeted groups. Now, these groups were mostly geographic, but we also did have some groups that were sector specific. So, just to kind of put that in layman's terms, we had a group from Toledo, which you can see pictured in the center picture here, that met with primarily Toledo lawmakers. So that's kind of how we broke up the day. And then we did have a reception at the end of the evening that was very, very well attended. In fact, the picture that I have here on the left is toward the beginning of the reception when things were just starting to get going. We saw almost 100 people come through the Statehouse Museum lobby there after the Statehouse Day of Advocacy. So for those on the call that were a part of that, I can't thank you enough for being there, whether it be in the planning, in the one-on-one meetings, or as part of the reception at the end of the evening. So we did a lot of advocacy around the budget. That Statehouse Day of Advocacy in March was just the beginning. In March, we had that advocacy day. The transportation budget passed. In May, we started really keying in on the operating budget. It passed the House in late May. And then we started with Senate hearings. Both Mitch and I testified in the Senate in May. And then in June, the amended operating budget passed the Senate, and then July, most of which was spent on conference committee, and then the ultimate passage of that operating budget. Many of the people on the call, many of the folks in our network, those 3,919 email subscribers and more, were absolutely instrumental in grassroots advocacy, reaching out to their legislators, calling, emailing. I can't tell you how many times I had folks reach out, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, and ask me to kind of turn it off because they were getting so many phone calls and emails, which is incredible. I mean, that means that they got the message loud and clear that this is something that Ohio cares about. The unfortunate thing is that the budget was not as optimistic as we'd hoped it would be for passenger rail. But the good news that came out of all of that is that nothing that we saw or didn't see in the operating budget is going to impact us continuing to move forward with Corridor ID in Ohio. So, ton of great work. We really made our presence known. And again, just so thankful to have the folks that are part of this organization have been activated so effectively. I did want to call out our top 5 partners during that advocacy experience. Collaboration is key to advocacy. All aboard Ohio, we were very, very fortunate to get help from a number of different organizations across the state. And our top supporters, I did kind of break them out into these smaller categories here. Our top nonprofit supporter, particularly around the Statehouse Day of Advocacy, was Transit Columbus, based here in Central Ohio. Stevie Passamonte, their executive director and board chair, was one of the targeted group leaders. They did just, again, an incredible job of tying passenger rail into the broader transit and transportation picture, and were incredibly supportive in terms of just getting, in some cases, just getting bodies in rooms to really increase our presence. I wanted to call out our top big city partner, the city of Toledo, specifically Lucy Frank, who is their city council chief of staff. They brought down an entire delegation to help advocate here at the State House, and really pushed very hard with that Northwest Ohio delegation in the legislature. Small city was a tie. We've got kind of one at either end of the 3CD. First is the city of Hamilton down in the greater Cincinnati area, and specifically Council Member Michael Ryan, who has been just an incredible partner throughout our advocacy efforts. Hamilton has a unique story. They've got a very, very large sports facility down there in Spooky Nook, and where I think many cities look at passenger rail as a way for people to get out of their city. Hamilton is looking at passenger rail as a way to get people into their city and really amplify that Spooky Nook facility. And then I would be remiss if we didn't recognize the city of Crestline and more specifically its mayor, Linda Horning Pitt. I had the pleasure of running into her last Friday in an event. And again, she just continues to be a delight and is one of the most outspoken passenger rail advocates in rural Ohio, really anywhere in Ohio, and is uniquely positioned not only in terms of her geography, but also in terms of the political geography that she represents, that her district is within Senator Bill Reineke's district, who's a very influential member of the majority in the Senate and likely to be our Senate president next General Assembly. So, again, she's going to continue to be an excellent resource for her. So, thank you to those two. And then in terms of our MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, again, we've got a tie here. I wanted to call out both TMACOG, the Greater Toledo area, their executive director, Sandy Spang, who has been just an incredible support throughout this entire endeavor. And then MORPC here in Central Ohio and their government affairs director, Joe Garrity. Those two MPOs, although advocating from slightly different platforms, have just been incredibly supportive of All Aboard Ohio and our mission throughout really all of this, even before the corridor ID process. MORPC have been incredible partners, specifically on the Midwest Connect project, which they are deeply involved with. Although the city of Fort Wayne is the sponsor, MORPC is doing a lot of the administrative work on that and has really continued to advocate and push that forward. And then finally, in terms of our county partners, Cuyahoga County, particularly Annie Peace, who works directly with Chris Ronayne up there, has just been, again, a wonderful resource in the greater Northeast Ohio area, and they have just been incredible partners throughout all of this. So thank you to all of those. I didn't see any of those people on the call before we got started, but if you are near any of them and bump into them during this holiday season, be sure to give them a thank you on behalf of All Aboard Ohio. Shifting gears slightly, I think many of us were at the annual meeting, which was just an absolute joy. I know I am, as I was putting this slide deck together, it really brought back some very, very fond memories of our annual meeting. I walked out of that meeting room just feeling inspired and invigorated. As we recall, we had a happy hour the Friday before the meeting, which was the first year we've done that. We welcomed some new friends. Just because of the location at Seventh Son and the amount of signage that we brought, we attracted just some, we like to call them civilians over and got them to join our movement. So I would call that a success by any definition of the word. Then the following day on Saturday, we met at the 4-H Center at Ohio State's campus. Had just under 100 total attendees, and I think if we counted the folks that were speakers and the folks that joined us as administrative partners, I think we were probably over the 100 mark. We had some incredible words of wisdom from our keynote speaker, Jason Ortner from North Carolina Department of Transportation. Some of the figures that he cited in there, I have been using and using and using since that day. And the one that I just quote over and over and over again is the fact that they get $45 million a year that they then turn around to net almost $20 billion in economic improvement. And I think when we have conversations, particularly with our state representatives about increasing funding for the Rail Development Commission here in Ohio, using figures like that are just going to continue to drive that home. We had an inspirational panel discussion. We had a number of people from a number of different sectors. We've already talked about Stevie Passamonte. And then I also wanted to quote here Captain Bernie Willis, who sat on that panel discussion, who's the chair of transportation in the House of Representatives here in Ohio. The one thing I wanted to take away from this meeting, if nothing else, was his statement that even though it might feel like you're losing right now, you are winning. We have just made such a difference in terms of our positioning, but it isn't really about us. It's about moving passenger rail forward. And we have really made a statement at the Statehouse that is being heard loud and clear that this is something that's important to Ohioans. So again, thank you. Here's a picture on the left that I thought was one of my favorite of the day. We've got Bernie Willis and Jack Daniels, the chair and vice chair of the House Transportation Committee, talking with Jason Ortner, um, talking with those two gentlemen after that conversation happened. They were really talking policy, talking about how NCDOT gets their funding. And I think, those two men have some pretty good ideas about some things that they'd like to do next General Assembly. So again, I think bringing Jason in is going to be probably one of the best decisions we have ever made as an organization. We had some new merch. I think everybody had an opportunity to dig through the table and see all of the fun stuff we've got. We got some fresh apparel and a lot of new things. And those items continue to be for sale on our website. I've ordered some of the things that were introduced this year. And shipping is quick. So if you've got some last minute holiday shopping to do, I know it's getting close, but maybe think about getting some passenger rail swag. In August, we had our race to Chicago, which was a very, very fun event. We had figured out, mathematically speaking, that the Cardinal Line and the Lakeshore Limited both arrive in Chicago within, I think it's about 10 or 15 minutes of one another. So it makes for a very, very reasonable race between the two. And so we had members from both our Cincinnati chapter and our Cleveland chapter. I don't believe we had any of our Toledo friends hop on as it went through the Glass City, but we had a number of folks race from Cleveland and Cincinnati to Chicago. And our friends from Cleveland were the winners, I believe just by a few minutes, if memory serves correctly. But just a ton of fun was had by all. And I think this is something that we could probably continue to do going forward. We did some other tours throughout the fall. Our friends in Cleveland went to the CVSR and took a trip. And this is actually a video. I'm going to see if we can get it to play. Oh, no, let's back up here. There we go. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that video there. And then our Columbus chapter just last month visited the Columbus Convention Center and toured the site of the um, proposed station here in Columbus. And just very exciting to see that the folks that renovated the convention center a number of years ago had the foresight to leave some additional space below the main floor with the anticipation of any kind of passenger rail expansion that would happen. So we're very uniquely positioned in central Ohio where we've got a position, a place where the station can go that is really just about exactly where you would want it to be. Just a few weeks ago, we had our Giving Tuesday campaign kickoff. It did wrap up, and I wanted to thank everybody again who was part of our All Aboard Ohio network and contributed, shared, asked your friends. Our goal was $5,000, and quite candidly, with you friends on this call, as Giving Tuesday kind of came and went, the numbers weren't looking great, and we were thinking it was going to be kind of a rough year for us. But then, as the campaign came to a close, we had just a large wave of donors and support. And we were able to close the doors with about $5,500 raised to support All Aboard Ohio. For those keeping score at home, that is the most we have ever raised in a Giving Tuesday. So thank you so much to the 78 people that contributed. We did have 3 new paid members join during the Giving Tuesday campaign. That is one of the things that we count in toward the total raised, but only those new members that joined during the midst of the campaign. So again, thank you for everybody who contributed. Each one of those dollars help us move forward our mission so that we can continue again to expand passenger rail and transit here in Ohio. I did want to kind of close out our talk by recognizing and thanking our former board chair, Erin Rosiello. As we know, we lost her unfortunately very or earlier this year, rather. She was just such an instrumental piece of All Aboard Ohio becoming what it is today. Um, when the Ohio Corridor ID program was announced in late 2023, uh, Aaron worked very, very, very hard to put together the statewide whistle stop tour. We toured municipalities across the state. We did Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus twice. We did Columbus at Morpsey, and then we had a legislator specific uh, whistle stop tour at the Statehouse. We did Cleveland, Toledo, Lima, and then, of course, the one that I call out every time I get the chance in Crestline, where we had almost 400 people in the room. All of that was Erin in the driver's seat. And she was really just, again, such an instrumental part of the transformation that we've seen over the past few years here at All Aboard Ohio. So, she is an incredible leader, and it was a tragic loss for us and for everybody that knew her. So that kind of wraps up our Wrapped. We do have a ton planned in 2026. I don't want to let too many cats out of the bag here right now, but we are very, very close to having a date pinned down for our annual meeting. So we'll be getting save the dates out on that. The conversations that we've been having about who we'd like to speak at that, if we get even half of the folks that we're talking about, it's probably going to be our best annual meeting yet. So you don't want to miss that. We've got a lot of things going on in the development world where we're kind of changing strategies. We've got some legislative updates that are going to be coming pretty soon. And then just again, continuing to push forward with Corridor ID as we move through that transitional period between steps 1 and steps 2. I do, as we're kind of wrapping up here, speaking of Corridor ID, the FRA has a um, Zoom webinar next week that is going to describe some changes that we're going to see in Corridor ID. For those that have kind of been keeping track at home, there is likely going to be some kind of intermediate step between step 1 and step 2 it doesn't seem like anybody in Ohio has a ton of concern about, but it will just kind of, maybe add a month or two to the process as we navigate through that. But this Zoom meeting next week is about that. So I'll be sure when I'm done with the presentation to drop that link into the chat comments, or Brian, if you have that handy from the email I sent to the board and can drop that in there, that would be incredibly helpful. But certainly something that if you're interested would be great to get in on. Other than that, we are wrapped with our Wrapped. I did want to kind of open up the floor to folks. This presentation is the culmination of the work of a few of our members and board leaders. But if if you have something that really stood out in your mind as a win or something that was really memorable for you throughout the year, I'd love to hear you share it. You can feel free to drop that in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand, we're certainly happy to call on you and have you share. Uh, and then if you do have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat as well. I do want to maybe give 10 minutes to folks that wanted to share their experiences this year, and then we can spend the rest of the time, time permitting, handling any questions that folks might have as we close out 2025. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to dig through. I've got a number of chat comments that I need to process. Brian, I'm going to let you kind of turn things over and maybe call on some folks, and I'll chime in as needed.
Sure, we can do that. And then the other thing too, going through the chat, there weren't a whole lot of questions in the chat. Maybe some, just a few on, hey, what are the plans for next year? So maybe thinking about a little of those as you go through. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Mitch, who has his hand up.
Awesome. Yeah, I first want to echo all of the thanks that John conveyed One additional big win, in my opinion, that I wanted to talk was our presence outside of Ohio is also growing dramatically. We've had a lot of really good partnerships with national organizations, whether that's the Rail Passengers Association, the High Speed Rail Alliance, but then also like Amtrak as a whole across the country. Like they are taking notice. I was talking with the Amtrak government affairs person, and she was saying that like there we have so many fans in the Amtrak central office, like because we are helping to push forward this idea of making passenger rail mainstream again, and so that's super exciting. Um, I had put in the comments another like big thing we're looking forward to next year is as a result of our national presence, they are bringing the Rail Nation Conference to Toledo this October. And so we're really looking forward. We're going to be involved with the planning of that. And we're looking forward to a great turnout amongst our members and supporters and partners. So as soon as we have the date on that, we will also be sure to share it. So thanks.
Yeah, Jessica, go ahead with your question. Yeah.
First of all, I wanted to go back to one of the points from the annual meeting. I think John was talking about North Carolina, something about $45 million invested and $20 billion return on investment. Was that North Carolina numbers, and is that like every year?
Essentially, the state funding of their equivalent of ORDC, right? So the Ohio Rail Development Commission here has something like a $6 million annual budget. And in North Carolina, John was pointing out that budget is $45 million. And then the other, I forget the billions of dollars, but that number is referring to the economic development that it drives in the state of North Carolina. And John, maybe if you've got that handy, you can add some clarification there.
No, that's exactly right, Brian. That 45 million versus 20 billion number, that is their annual economic impact and investment in their rail network. Now, he didn't break it up by how much of that is freight, how much of that is passenger. I think pragmatically speaking, it's probably the bulk of that is probably on the freight side in terms of both investment and economic return. But what's nice about having such a well-funded rail development network is that you don't have to worry so much about if you want to spend a little money on passenger rail, then that being detrimental to the freight rail expansion. It isn't a discussion that they have to have in North Carolina like we have to have here in Ohio. So again, I think one of our big priorities as we move into the 137th General Assembly, not next year, but in 2027, is to really fund ORDC in a meaningful way, because this $2 million, $3 million, $6 million amount is really just not competitive with some of our other peers in terms of, again, even if we take the passenger rail lens completely off, in terms of just developing our rail network in general, it's not competitive. Good question, Jess.
And you mentioned something about you mentioned briefly development things that you're working on. There was an old flyer with the older brand that has some statistics about how many people die in car accidents in Ohio and safety and the reduced use of energy. And I see there's a few one pagers on the site, but not that one. So you're still developing more materials? Are you still looking at like targeting specific groups or businesses, or is that already going on behind the scenes?
Yes, so the development committee is working on kind of a forward-thinking strategic plan, and without getting into the details at a granular level, we've built over the past few years this coalition of partners that are either administrative or municipal or jurisdictional in nature. And what I mean by that is like cities, counties, MPOs, um, you know, basically decision makers, and we've been very, very effective with that. And what the development committee is focused on as we go into 2026 is building a similar coalition, or even just augmenting the existing coalition, with business leaders and other stakeholders that would have a voice in the passenger rail development space.
And
So
something about small businesses and making something for their windows. Is that still?
absolutely. And I think as those as those conversations continue with the development committee, and those plans get kind of firmed up, which I think is going to be very, very soon, we'll certainly share that with the broader membership, and give you folks the opportunity and agency to go out there and make those requests on your own.
And what about the flyer I just mentioned? I mean, I still have it, but it's just the older look. But it just had some specifics about how much energy is saved with rail fuel versus
Yeah,
cars.
Jessica, I think that's a great question. Would you mind just snapping a picture of that one and sending it to us to refresh our memory on which specific one you're referring to? I think that would be helpful.
I might even send I think I probably scanned it. I can probably send it.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, Alex, go ahead. I think you're unmuted.
Yes, actually, I do have a question actually about passenger rail and what it has to do with next year's election and what it has to do with passenger rail. This is a question for Mitch Rasha, whatever his name is, Mitch.
What?
Does Vivek Ramaswamy oppose passenger rail, or does he support it, or is he just open?
Okay, let him answer. No other. Or does he not know?
Anybody?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Mitch was on. It doesn't look like Mitch is still on. He might have had to drop. But I'll just comment. I haven't heard comments one way or the other from Ramaswamy on it. So I will leave that. I think our focus right now is on the current delegation. The legislature is going to be much more important as we go through this process with regards to corridor ID. There are also other programs happening that would be more relevant to the congressional delegation. And so directing comments towards our elected members in federal Congress would be more useful. But we're not, I have not heard comments one way or the other.
Actually, one other question I had.
Eli,
Yeah,
if I could-
John would like to have a follow-up.
Yeah, I would also say, just in very broad strokes, All Aboard Ohio is a 501c3 nonprofit, and because of that, we've got to be incredibly careful about our activity in two spaces. One of those is the legislative space, where we've got very strict guidelines about how much of our activity can fall in that category, but then also in the political space. So I would say, and I don't want to speak for the board here, but it would be unlikely that we would come out as an organization in favor of or opposed to any particular political candidate. We're probably going to, ignore the fact that there's an election happening in 2026 altogether. And to Brian's point, just continue to focus on the people that are already in elected office and continue the education that we've been so successful with.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for those questions. I know we've got some new people here. If you had any questions, that would be wonderful. And then otherwise, like I said, I've been watching the chat. I think this one, just by nature of being a recap of the end of year, probably doesn't generate as many follow-up questions. But one of the things, there were several people who did ask about the annual meeting, and I know probably not everyone is watching the chat. So maybe I'll just verbally say as well, with our plans in the spring, making sure that more legislatures can attend that event. And also, we're super excited about the National Rail Passenger Association doing their annual meeting in Toledo. We wanted to have a little bit more space between those events. So we've been doing our annual meeting in the summer for a number of years. We're very interested to see how attendance might be different during a different part of the year. We suspect that summer is a difficult time for a lot of people to participate in a meeting like that. Jessica asked about our involvement in the national event. We want to do everything we can to make sure that is a super successful event in Toledo later in the year. We are going to look into the possibility of even helping to arrange for some transportation from other parts of the state, whether that's, kind of coordinating on, a shuttle bus or something from the, further places. I think that would be a really nice way to make sure we maximize attendees. They get really great presenters for their event, and we want to make sure that we've got a crowd befitting of the presenters that they have at that event. Let's see here. And then Dave, to your question regarding RTA, and maybe not so much specifically on that and the budget cuts that have come up more recently, but we will continue to push and promote and encourage RTA to find additional streams of revenue. That will actually be our Northeast chapter meeting in the February-March timeframe. We're going to talk about how transit-oriented development can be an additional source of revenue and funding for RTA. So keep an eye out for that when we get that one scheduled. It's not posted just yet, but we'll get that up. Probably by the beginning of the year. So, any final thoughts, John?